completed some of the concept, right, from the functions. Okay, so yep. Now so let's complete the functions concepts by today itself. And okay, now mm, sorry for joining late. Okay, no problem, Swaran.
Thank you.
So we'll try to be complete the functions concepts today itself, so that from the next week. Mhm. This weekend I would like to be, we consider, took some extra sessions, and I want to try to complete the files concepts, and I would like to complete the, models and packages concept. If these two things are done, then you can actively participate it for, data science sessions. I mean, stats and other stuff. Okay. So, and Kishore and Prasad and Sandeep. So I would like to know, I would like to call you after this session. And Kishore, can you put a message in the group? Someone has to be not a joint.
Okay, sir.
Let's go for your specific folder. Krishna Vamshi and Python functions. Okay. So I hope you guys are understood how we can, how we can create the logic, the function definitions, and how we can call that particular function definition whenever you want it, right? Okay. So by the time you know how we can send the data from the function calling to function definition, meanwhile, you know how we can receive the data from function definition to function call, right? So these things you understood, right? Now, so this is the standard flow structure of the Python program. When you're writing the program, you have to follow this particular process only or structure only, then it could be the good practice. Without this structure also, your program can be executed. But thing is that for someone is looking your program, they will always look whether you're how much comfortable with, writing the program in a proper professional way, right? So that we can try to be go for, this particular structure itself. Clear, right?
Hi, I missed this class yesterday. Can you explain a bit on this?
So nothing to
Just
first, try to be go for,
okay.
Previous recording. I was not explaining
Okay,
anything.
sure thing.
Yeah, so if even you are not
Right.
understood, I can explain one more time. But
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
sounds great. No problem.
just you know what? So this is the function definitions, right? You just write the function definitions first, and usually we don't have any kind of main function. Okay, in a Python programming language, it can start executing from the line one onwards, right? So that I created the one particular main function that is also user defined function. Okay, this user defined function you have to be call it, so we are calling from here, and this is the thing you should write in one particular block. This is the block we can call it a main block. Okay, for looking that the entry point of the program, which is this one, but actually the entry point of this particular program is first line only. But first line is a comment, it won't execute it. This second line is also, it's a function definition, it won't execute it. Third one also function definition, it won't execute it. Fourth one also, it's a function definition, it won't execute it. And so eighth line also, it's a function definition, it is also won't execute it. But 16th line, which is not the function definition, which is some condition, if condition, right? So this is the condition is always true, so that it is moving into inside of the block, so that you're calling the main function. Once if you calling the main function, this is the statements can be executed. By execution of this time, you are calling, you're calling the factorial function, you're calling the number of factors, you're calling the isPrime function. So that's the reason this is the three functions can be executed. Actually, this is assignment. So this pass, in place of pass, you have to replace the your logic. That's exactly I'm explaining in our previous class. You don't worry, just go through the my previous class. I already uploaded in the Canvas playlist. Clear?
Thank you so much.
Did you receive that? Just a minute, I would like to check whether you are received or not.
I was not feeling well, so I didn't get a chance to check. So I do have all your lectures loaded in this Canvas.
Okay, fine, no problem. Mm. Now we can okay. Now what we can do, yeah. So now when you are creating the function, when you are creating the function definition, we can use the def keyword, right? So def and followed by the function name, and you already know that we can receiving the number of arguments. Let me consider, I am just as a small example, sample thing actually. Okay, for example, this is the function, it can receiving the two arguments. I just want to print it, what could be the argument 1, I just want to print it, what could be the value of the argument 2. Okay, so here I'm calling this particular function, I'm sending the 10, and next I'm sending the 20. This time this 10 will be holding into the argument 1 and 20 will be holding into the argument 2. This thing you already know it, right? Now what I can do, same program, I can execute here, I'm not sending the two arguments, I'm sending only one argument. We got an error or not? Actually, you defining the two arguments at a function definition, but from the function call, you're just sending the only single argument. When we are sending this type of thing, you might be getting the type error issue. To overcome this one, we have the a concept is default arguments. Default arguments. Default arguments in the sense you can set some default data. If you're not sending the any kind of thing, it can be considering the these values only. For example, if you're sending the 10, this 10 will be holding into the argument 1. You're not sending the argument 2, so that by default which is none is there, so that which is printing the none here. I hope you clear, right? You're not getting any error even you're sending the single argument. This is the thing we are calling it say default argument. But actually this is the 10 I want to be holding into the argument 2, not in argument 1. That's my condition. In this particular situation, you just use the name of the argument at function call and you can assign it. Now this is the 10 which is not storing into the argument 1. Okay, it will be go for the argument 2. So that now my argument 1 is the none, argument 2 is the 10. I hope you got the difference between these two things. Actually, we are getting an error when you are sending the less number of arguments. To overcome that one, we are using the default arguments. Even this one also, you want to send some specific number, some specific argument. I want to set some value. Rest of the things I want the default values only. Then we can go ahead with this concept. Okay. Any questions?
So I have a question. In the function arguments, like let's say you're passing something as a string, can you later on change it to an integer?
Sorry,
Like when you're calling the function?
I can't get
I'm
you.
saying in the function definition, right?
Hmm.
If you are passing, like let's say one of the arguments you're passing as a string, can you change that the type of the data type in the when you call the function?
Of course, you can do it. So usually this is first of all, it's not the string data type. It's a none data type. None
Right.
means
It's
nothing,
a
right?
non-data. Nothing.
Okay.
Right.
So usually Python is the dynamic programming language. Okay. So dynamic programming language in the sense which is not depending on the data type. Okay. Here, for example, we can set you some integer values. Okay.
Right.
So here you set some integer values. Now here I'm sending this some string data, for example. Okay. So this time,
Mm-hmm.
this is a 67 is integer, right? That integer data which
Right.
is replacing with the string data type, which means this is argument 2, which is not depending on the data type. You can set any data, any type of data.
Gotcha.
Now you clear, right?
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, good enough. So we can use the any kind of data type as a default arguments. There is no specific meaning to use the none. The only reason is that if we don't have any data, then we can use the none. And if you want to set some specific data, we can use the data elements only. It's up to your choice whether you want to use the none or else some specific data. It's all about your choice. Okay. I hope you clear regarding about default arguments as well.
Yes.
Now, you know what? Recursive function. Some guys are, I was not explain recursive function, but you did, recursive function example. How you did it, I don't know. But but something you want to be learn, don't copy actually. Okay. So whatever I explain, you have to be work on that particular area. Okay. So if I'm giving some assignment in the sense, so whatever I explain from that particular concept, we should use it and implement the logic so that you can get the idea. So it's every question, everything, it could be available in a Google actually. Just take it and copy paste, and we can by heart. One day we can remember, and third day we can forget. So that if I'm not explain something recurs, if something new concept, if I'm not explain, please avoid it. Don't practice it. If and only if I explain, you can practice it. Clear, right? All of you? So
Yes.
now I would like to go for explaining about recursive function. First of all, what exactly the meaning of the recursive function? Usually, function definitions, function definitions can called outside of the function definition or not? Yes or no? So outside of the same function definition, right? For example, we can go ahead this example. This is my function definition, right? This is a function definition where you called inside of the function or outside of the function. This is the function you called inside you called outside of this particular function, so which is somewhere else, not inside of the this particular logic, this particular body. The function definition which is not having the function call of the same function. Okay, so because of it's not a recursive function, so that factorial which is called not inside of the factorial. Okay, so when a function can be calls itself, so whenever a same function can call itself, that we are calling it a recursive function. Let it be go for so here I have a function 1, and now what I can do, you're doing some operations, and if you don't want to do it, it's up to your choice. And again you're calling the same, this is the function call, right? This is the function call. So, and this is function definition, right? This is a function definition. So what exactly it is doing? This is a function, and you called from somewhere else initially. and you're printing the hello, and then you're calling the same function. When you're calling the same function, again it is go for executing the same thing, and again which is printing the hello, and again it is calling the same function. Once again the function one is called, then it will be go for executing the same function. Again hello is printing, again the function is calling, again the same function is calling, right? This is never ever stops if you go for this particular situation. Okay, so this kind of recursive function, when you're using the recursive function, make sure that you should stop execution at any one of the case, or at any one of the situation. Otherwise, which is repeating continuously, something like loops only. Clear? So this is the function one which is calling itself, right? So which is in the loop. So it's never stopping, it's continuously repeating the same function execution. So that's a problem, that's a one of the drawback of the recursive function. When we are using the recursive function, make sure that we should make it some proper logic. If you're not aware of the recursive function, don't use it. If you're little confused about recursive function, don't use it. Okay, but when we should use the recursive function, you want to do one particular task repeatedly, continuously, okay, and I don't want to use the loops, but I want to repeat the task continuously, okay, that situation I can use the recursive function. And when you're using the recursive function, the speed of the program, it could be little good. So that's a main intuition of the recursive function. And make sure that when you're using the recursive function, don't if you don't write the proper logic, it never stops. Let me go for our sake of understanding, I'm calling the function at least one time. You have to call outside of the function. So when I'm calling, is never stopping. It's never stopping. It's still executing. It never stops. Something like while of true and something we written it. So at last, it might be giving some error. I will show you the error. So recursive error, right? So recursive error in the sense maximum recursion depth exceeded while calling the Python object. So when you are repeating that one, for example, I want to know how many times which was repeated. Then every time I'm sending the some value, okay, and default it's a 1. For every time updating the I plus 1, okay, this initially I value is the 1, and when you're calling 1 plus 1 2, so now I value is the 2, and then which is printing, and by the time I value is the local value is the 2, so 2 plus 1 it's a 3. So continuously I also can be updated. So I want to know that, oh shit, again I missed it. I have to print I value also, how many times the for loop is repeated. For that one, for sake of understanding, I'm printing the I value also. Okay, now we are running just to know how many times this is the loop is repeated. So 2967 times, 2967 times that loop is repeated. Okay, now what I can do, I want to stop at 2000 3000. I want to stop at 3000. I want to stop at 3000. So here I can use the if. Actually, your depth is 2967, right? Now here I am using the condition I equal to if in case I want to go ahead with the 4000, I want to repeat this particular loop, or I want to print the hello 4000 times actually. Simply if I value is the 1, so until unless I value is the 400, you're going to be repeating it. Once if I value is more than the, okay, if I value is reached the 4000, then I have to stop voluntarily. So here we are not getting any kind of error. So let me check whether you are getting error or not. Oh, here also we are getting an error. So maximum the loop can be repeated only, the recursive function is repeated only 2967 only. Okay, so remember guys, this thing I never tried it, this one. Some guy is trying to be using the recursive function in the my logic of previous thing. Okay, so to get it some information, I explain it here. See, even you set some condition. Okay, recursive function in the sense the same function, it can be called only some specific number of times only, not more than that. So that is the conclusion I want to give it here. Okay, did you got my point? But the same thing, I hope you understood the drawback of the loops and the recursive function. Same thing I want to make it with the loops. What happens, we'll see. So for example, I value is 1. For every time I have to repeat it. If I value is reaching the 4000, then I want to stop it. If not, then I want to print the hello, and I want to print the I value also. So for every time I would like to go for update the I value equal to I plus 1. Okay, so which is not stopping your loop in some iterations. But in case of recursive, you know, you know, here we are not getting any kind of error when I'm using the recursive, which means the same function, it can be calls itself only this many times only, 2968 times. Usually I value started with 1, right? Yes, this time, this many times only. 2967 times a function can be calls itself recursively. That's a that you should remember it. Okay, anyway, recursive means a function, it can be calls itself, right? So here my logic is correct, so that you're getting an output, but unfortunately we are exceeding some number of times, so that we are getting an error. Now I want to make it a small program, and with help of the factorial, I just want to make it factorial. But even factorial, right? Here I'm giving the some guy is doing a factorial program. So for example, now I want to do it factorial of a number. Okay, so if I'm giving the number is more than 3000, then what happened, guys? If I'm giving my number is 3000, then what happens? Number is 1, I value, for example, some value of I, or else. Okay, so if in case n value, and which is equal to I, equal to I. Okay, so we just want to make it some value of n is some value, right? So now what I can do, it's a factorial logic, which is n minus 1 if return if n is equal to 1, then I just want to be return the 1. Okay, otherwise what I wanted, so we have to return the, so your factorial, your n value, and you can multiply with factorial of n minus 1. Okay, so finally you are going to be printing the factorial, so you are going to be printing the factorial result, factorial of, for example, of 4. So if you are giving the 4, then it's a 24. Okay, factorial of 5, it is printing the 120 only. Now same program, if I'm giving the my factorial logic is 3000. If I'm giving the 3000, is it giving output? Is it giving output or error? It will be an error, guys.
Error.
The drawback we understood or not?
The,
When you're using the factorial.
the,
Yes.
is
Without
it
using
is it
factorial,
because of the
yes,
recursive?
absolutely correct. Yes, absolutely correct. Because of which is exceeding the more number of times. Which is exceeding the 2967 times. So because of that one, you are unable to finding the factorial. For example, if I'm giving the 2600 and for ex 2600 and how much? What is the last recursive count?
2967.
2967. For example, here I'm giving the 2967. This time you got the result or not? Within fraction of time we got it. This is the factorial of one particular number. But if we want to find the factorial of 2068, we are getting an error. 68 or so we got it. So now, okay, which is exceeding, calling 2970. Oh my god. Right. Previously we got error, right? It makes me playing the game with me. Huh? Okay. So the standard it could be 2701. This also. Okay, still. Okay, 2973. Yeah, so there could be some limit, right? So that's the reason. Try to be aware with the recursive function. When you want to do very less number of times you want to performing one particular task, then we can go for the recursive. But when you want to go for some more than some exceeded number, then we cannot use the recursive. But you know what exactly the definition of the recursive? Recursive means the function has to be called itself. The function definition also it can be contains the function call of the same function. That's we are calling it say recursive function. Clear? Now, packing and unpacking. Packing arguments. So packing arguments in the sense, now what you want to do it. So we can create the function definition and so you can send the n number of arguments. We can send the n number of arguments. Okay. So this n number of arguments will be holding into the one single argument. So I want to print the A. So this is my packed argument. So for example, we can send the 34, 97 and 12 and 78. Here we are sending the 4 arguments, right? These 4 arguments. So this is the 4 arguments. Okay. These 4 arguments we are packing as the one group. Okay. These 4 arguments we are packing as the one group and we are holding into one specific variable. This is the concept we are calling it say packing. So now we can say unpacking. Unpacking in the sense you might have one particular sequential variable. This is a single argument only, right? So here we are sending the single argument. The single argument is list. So the list which we have the 3 elements, right? But actually this is the entire thing. It's a one data member, right? This entire thing it's a one data type, and it's a list data type, and which is having only list object. This is the one list object. I am sending the list object. Now what I want to do it, I want to unpack these 3 arguments. If you want to be unpack these 3 arguments, then we just use the 2 star set okay, function call, and here we can mention the argument 2, argument 3, argument 2 and argument 3, argument 1. This time argument 1 will be the 12, argument 2 is the A2, 89, argument 3 is the 34. This is the way you can able to unpack. This is the thing we are calling it's unpacking. So we already have some data as a packed that we are unpacked with help of the single star at function call. This time this is the single object can be converting into the multiple data members. Then the single element will be single argument, a single element will be going for the single first argument, second element will be go for second argument, third element will be going and storing into the third argument. This we are calling it say unpacking. Okay, I hope you understood, right? What is the difference between the packing and unpacking?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope you understood the recursive function also, right?
Yes, sir.
So here we should understood the two things. So basically variables are two types of variables we have it. So how many types of variables we have it? Two types of variables.
2 times.
What are those? Can anybody guess it?
Predefined
Global
Global
variables.
variables and local.
Variables means it's identifiers. Identifiers means what? It's a user defined only. Okay. So global variables and local variables. So global variables means it is having some kind of extra beneficiary when you compare with the local thing. Okay, the lifetime and usage only within the block. So when you're defining the variables, when you're defining the variables inside of the functional blocks, those variables we are calling it say, okay, those variables we are calling it a local variables. That means the usage and the life scope, lifetime and usage, okay, only within that particular block only. Let me go for understanding the local variable here. For example, I have a def, and here I created one particular variable inside of it. So this is my variable and the value is only 123. I want to be print this particular var. Now what I want to do actually, I want to be update this particular var. I want to be update this particular var with some value. Okay, now what I want it, I can call this one, and so here we are printing 123, right? After you printing this 123, I want to be access this particular var outside of the function call. This time we are getting the name error or not? Actually, you defining the var inside of the functional block, you defining the var inside of the functional block, so the scope is only within the block only. So if you're going outside of that particular scope, outside of that particular block, you don't have any possibility to access that one. Okay, so this kind of variables we are calling it say local variables. When you are defining the variables inside of the function definition, those variables are the local variables. Okay, but I want to make it the local variables as a global variables. For that one, we have a global keyword is there. We have a global keyword. Now you defining a variable as the global, then it's not local now. Now it's a global. If it is a global, the lifetime and the access throughout of the program. I hope you understood, right? See, previously same thing, you were defining one particular variable within the block, and so if we try to be accessed outside of the block, which we are getting an error because of its a local variable. Now what I did actually with help of the global variable or global keyword, we defining the variable as the global, then the usage, not only this particular block, it can be outside of the block also. So that we are getting the 133, because of here we are updated the var is not 123, which is 123 plus 10, it's a 133. That 133 you are printing outside of the functional block within the seventh statement. Because of the seventh statement we are getting 123. and because of the fourth statement we are getting the 123. 133 we are getting because of the seventh one, and 123 we are getting because of the fourth one, fourth line. Any question regarding about this local variable and global variables? Now, so you're not defining the global keyword, you're not defining the global keyword, you're defining the same variable outside of the function, then what happens? Outside of the function, then what happens? So by default, the value of var is 500, and you're calling the function, then we are assigning the 123 is the, that time, this is the local variable. Local variable. So this is the var name is different, this var name is different. So this var is only inside of the, it can be accessed only inside of it, right? So that we are printing the 123 outside of the var, which is printing the 500, which is not printing the 133. But the same thing, instead of assigning the 133, what I do actually, I used it. I used the var. If I used the var before, if I used the variable, okay, without definition, which means that it can be feels that it's a global variable, so that it's a printing the 500. Now what I did actually, that global variable, you're updating the 123. So 123 plus 10, it's a 133. This 133 we are printing outside of the functional block. That means unbounded local variable. Actually, this is the Python 3. It's a Python 3 updated thing which we are unable to access this one. But in case of Python 2 or the lower versions, it is supported. Okay. So see, you're not defining, but even though we are accessing that one, so we can't, it's not possible actually. Okay. This is a thing we can able to go for. We can able to go for use only if you're defining the variable, you should go for, if defining the variable inside of the block, we should use only within the block only. We can't use that outside of the block. In the meanwhile, if you're defining the variable outside of the block and without indication, we can't do that. Okay. So now what I want to do it, I want to make it. So if I do, what happens? Even you're defining the,
Maybe it overrides the variable after the function call.
no, actually, so you don't have the permission to modify it. So this is the var is 500, right? By default, it's a global variable.
Right.
By default is a global. Okay. Even without a global keyword, when you're defining the variable outside of the block, then it by default is the global. If it is the global,
Mm-hmm.
then you are eligible to use that particular variable, but it's not possible to modify inside of the blocks. Okay. Then this situation, what you should do, global var, so global var, and where is it? Use it here the global declaration. By default, it's a global variable. Control X. Global var. So now it's working or not? So this is the variable by default, it's a global, but if you want to be modify, inside of the block, inside of the functional block also, make sure that we have to specify global var. Global var in the sense we are going to be accessing this is the variable, so that we can able to modify it. So that we can able to modify it. So previously global variable is 500, that you're modifying as the 500 plus 1, that you're modifying as now it's a 510. See guys, that's what you can defining the global variables inside of the block as well as outside of the blocks also. But if you're defining the global variable outside of the block, you don't need to specify. Okay, by default it's a global. But if you want to be modify inside of the blocks, which is not possible, for that kind of permissions, we are going to be using the global keyword. So that is exactly the uses of the global keyword. Global keyword is giving a lot of functionalities for you to access the global variables, to modify the global variables inside of the functional blocks. Without global keyword, we can't modify the global variables, but we can use the global variables. Okay. So you try to be understood what exactly the global, right? Global means the lifetime and the usage, not only within the block, it's a whole program. Whole program. Clear? That's the meaning of it. I hope you guys are clear about functions concepts. And for next class we will meet stats classes. And meanwhile, what we will do, I let you know, guys. I will let you know whether I would like to take the Python sessions, extra Python session tomorrow or day after tomorrow, because of I have to finish it Python sessions ASAP. Okay, so this month I was a little busy, guys. Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, so I might not be available Tuesday and Thursday, so that I would like to take some extra sessions on weekends. Sorry, yes, weekends. Okay, so I would like to plan for it. Not this week. I mean, from Monday onwards, I want to be considered that one. Okay, so if time consists, tomorrow we will meet. I will let you know whether you want to meet or not. But you can come for the stats classes. Come to stats class. Okay, bye, take care.